The deadly mass shooting by an ISIS sympathizer in Orlando has sparked more than a debate over fighting the terror organization. It's rehashed the topic of gun control. 4 gun control bills are set to receive a vote on the Senate floor tomorrow as the demand for gun control legislation reaches a fever pitch in the aftermath of the Orlando terrorist attack, now the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history. The gunman in the attack, Omar Mateen, killed 49 people and injured 53 others last Sunday with a semi-automatic assault rifle, which he legally purchased. Mateen was killed by police hours later in a shootout. The FBI says Mateen, who was a U.S. citizen, had been on their radar twice for terror-related investigations, but nothing turned up. Because of the FBI's lack of findings, Omar Mateen still skated through the system. But the majority of Americans are outraged because he was still allowed to purchase the guns used in the attacks, despite 2 separate investigations. So can both Republicans and Democrats find a compromise on gun control legislation? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page and on Twitter. Just use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom, our panel again, led by our senior legal analyst Chris Tritico, Democratic media consultant Mustafa Tamiz, and Republican strategist and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. So is passage of any of these bills possible at this point?
Well, anything is possible, but I think it's highly unlikely that any of this will get through. This is always a highly charged political issue in an election year. As hotly contested as this presidential election is going to be, I don't see the House of Representatives ever passing any of these bills. But we'll see. Stranger things have happened. You know, Jackie, for well over 100 years, we have recognized in the United States, Supreme Court has recognized reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on the First Amendment, freedom of speech. And we have recognized that those limits are okay as a reasonable limit on our First Amendment rights. What's wrong with reasonable limits on the Second Amendment? For instance, if you're not qualified to fly on one of our planes, why can you then still go buy an AR-15?
Well, if you're talking about the no-fly list, we've discussed this several times on the show. There are several people who are erroneously on that list. And one of the bills proposed by a Republican is to have a due process to vet, to make sure that person has a bona fide reason to be on that list, and if that is correct, then of course they are not allowed to have a gun. After San Bernardino, you said something that was very poignant. You said that you hope that the legislators don't pass a bunch of bills based on emotion, that they think through the process, and I think that's important right now. One of the reasons that the State Department was admonishing the president is because they said he's looking at this as a law enforcement issue versus looking at it as war on terrorism. I hate to say this, but these people are barbarics. They're animals. Do you think they care what law we pass? They are criminals. They want to kill us. They're going to find a way to kill us. They're going to find a way to make a bomb. They're not going to care what kind of law our Congress passes. And again, anytime you pass a law like this, like some of the Democrats are proposing, you're hurting law-abiding citizens. You're not hurting barbarics. In Paris, they have some of the most restricted gun laws possible, and you saw what happened there.
So Mr. Mateen, who's a citizen of this country, born here, was on the no-fly list, but was able to walk into a store, pass a background check, and buy an AR-15 and hundreds of rounds of bullets. And without going through all the legislation, if there was a law that says if you're on the no-fly list, you can't buy a weapon, wouldn't that have at least slowed him down?
Yeah, I don't know about his specific case, if he was on the list or not, but almost over 230 people that are...
Or maybe he wasn't, you may be right.
But there are over 230 people that are on the no-fly list have purchased a weapon. Think about that for a second. The FBI has prevented these people from getting on a plane, yet they're able to go in and buy not just a handgun, but something like an AR-15 weapon, which you can do mass shootings with. And that's the problem. And so I agree that the terror watch list, there should be a way to get people off. I agree that over time, since Homeland Security was created in the early 2000s or mid-2000s to now that watch list has developed and has gotten better, process have been put together. But the fact that over 230 people that could not get on an airplane were able to purchase a weapon tells us that this is one thing we can do to potentially put a roadblock on some of the terrorist activity. It won't solve everything, but it's probably a good starting point.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let me pull it up right now for you guys as we are going to head over to Twitter here. Lots of people weighing in on this debate. This first person says pass legislation that requires all qualified citizens to arm themselves. So she's obviously, not for any new bills restricting guns there. This guy says instead of gun control, how about crazy control? Because anyone who would shoot an innocent person is crazy. And then this lady says, so Mateen was known to the FBI for contact with terrorists and had beaten his wife. No problem buying guns, though. Gun fail. Hashtag GOP fail.
Well, and that's part of what the issue is that because of, and Jackie, that's part of the issue I was trying to point out, is this guy is known to the FBI, but they don't have enough to arrest him. They don't have enough to do to detain him. He can go buy a gun. Wouldn't that be a reasonable limitation?
In this particular instance, the gun owner contacted law enforcement
about him. But they can't stop him.
However, the law enforcement officer said there's nothing wrong. So I don't think that it's a gun law that prevented him from getting that prevented him from being caught. There was clearly a deficiency in the investigation by the FBI. This was the third time that he had been alerted, or the law enforcement had been contacted about this man. His incident started from maybe a decade before.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, the FBI investigation. The FBI went, he himself went to his workers and started boasting about the fact that he had terrorist ties. The FBI went and started to ask questions of the workers and also of him. What they found was his answers were completely bogus. He would say to people that my family's connected to Hamas and my family's connected to Al-Qaeda, the two groups that never get along. And so
it just couldn't have been.
It just couldn't have been. So
all right, let me stop you because we're almost out of time. Donald Trump said he was going to go to the NRA and talk about reasonable limits on the purchase of weapons. That's never going to fly in the GOP.
Well, it's not going to fly in the GOP, unfortunately, but what Donald Trump is trying to do is that over 70 to 80% of Americans believe that should happen.
Real quick, is that going to fly?
I think Democrats want to keep their guns too, because again, law-abiding citizens are the ones that get hurt whenever you impose some of these restrictions.
All right, we got to leave it right there. We'll be back next week, wrapping up the hottest stories of the week.
Okay, we'll see you guys then.